Today on the Topping Show, Wendy's to debut surge pricing goes viral. Vivek's 10 consistent truths go viral as well. Nikki Haley's Trump Debt tweet, well, it is roasted and backfires. Bumble to lay off 350 employees. Elon on the risk of unidentified aliens crossing the border. And Toyota recalling nearly 400,000 trucks. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button and tell your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, we have Wendy's to debut surge pricing in 2025, and they went viral and of course are subsequently roasted beyond all belief. Now, we've seen this surge pricing in a myriad of other industries, probably most famously in Uber and Lyft, where you have your standard rate for if you have to choose to take an Uber to the airport or somewhere else, and you'll have the usual rate. But if it's a fancy night, perhaps it's New Year's Eve or some other sports balls holiday that Americans are celebrating, well, then they're going to double, triple, or quadruple the price just based on the overwhelming demand. Hence, surge pricing. There's a surge in demand, and subsequently the price goes up. Now, we haven't really seen this too much in fast food before. They would certainly, I think, be an industry first. While we've seen fast food pricing be variable based on geographic location, there's a reason why the price of it is going to be darn near double in California versus, the Midwest. But that's usually just based on geography, not time of day, and not specific holidays. And it'll be interesting to see. So these fast food companies, they're in a very, very unusual situation, and they kind of have their backs up against the wall just due to the rising costs and the consumers not being willing to pay a premium for something that's supposed to be cheap, fast, convenient. Well, it's no longer hardly any of those things, so they need to evolve. Now, when asked for comment, some of the Wendy's executives say, quote, beginning as early as 2025, we will begin testing more advanced features like dynamic pricing and day part offerings, along with AI-enabled menu changes and suggestive selling. As we continue to show the benefit of this technology in our company-operated restaurants, franchisee interested in digital menu boards should increase, further supporting sales and profit growth across the system. Now, let's see here. I can't imagine this going well for the company. And of course, within a couple hours, they actually backtracked saying, hey, don't worry, it's not going to happen until 2025. And on LinkedIn, he had Emma Thorne saying, quote, they claim that they're going to have, quote, no plans to raise menu prices at busy times of the day. Which, again, when we had the very first article on USA Today, where they first made this announcement, that was going to be pretty heavily implied because, again, they have parallels with other similar things, similar industries. So, again, they say they're not going to do it, but I don't see why they wouldn't, especially because, during peak times of the day, they're going to have more overwhelming demand. That's one way to decrease some of that demand, and while at the same time increasing your price points. And again, these companies need to do something different because a lot of them are between a rock and a hard place. California, the people brilliantly passed a law or voted to pass a law so that the minimum wage for fast food workers is like $20 an hour. Let that sink in for a minute there. $20 an hour to flip a hamburger. That's astonishingly improbable to make that work as a fast food concept. So they're going to have to increase those prices. So I think we're going to see a lot more increase in robotics as well as AI. And they say, oh yeah, we're gonna, now that we've seen this pushback, we're claiming it's not going to be based on the time of the day. But what else would it be? Maybe they're going to claim it's going to be based on inventory levels. They have some burgers that are about to expire, so they need to sell those quick. But there's going to be, the surge pricing is going to be based on a myriad of things. And even though they backtracked after they immediately backlash and they were roasted online, pun rather intended since they're a fast food place, although many of them use microwaves instead of grills. But nevertheless, I think you're going to see this trend in fast food because, again, they're forced to increase their price. Their cost of goods and services are going exponentially due to the government intervention. And the quality, the ingredients, those are all going up. I would also argue due to government intervention in a myriad of industries. So the cost everywhere is going up, but the consumer doesn't want to pay that because, again, it's supposed to be fast, cheap, and convenient. So they're going to have to do something different, and I'm not too surprised they're going to try to utilize technology to do this. But let me know, do you think, I did a small poll, and granted, this is a very, very small sample size. I posted on LinkedIn asking people, would you pay, do you think this is going to blow up in Wendy's face, or do you think it'll be a good idea for the company? And pulling up my poll, actually, and again, this was a very small sample size. I posted it recently, and it got 44 votes, and I said, simple 3 options. Will this be a good idea for Wendy's? Yes, no, other. 86% of the 44 people who voted said no, 9% said yes, and 5% said other or comment. So, and again, that's a very small sample size. And again, it's also the bias in terms of the audience is only on LinkedIn. But again, the average consumer, I think they're just going to see the increased prices, they're going to walk away. And I don't know if I have to say this for the millionth time, but it is cheaper and healthier just make your own food at home for a fraction of the cost. But let me know in the comments, would you be willing to pay more just based on the time of the day or based on some other variable when you go to the Wendy's? As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have Bumble to lay off 350 employees. Now, Bumble is one of the myriad of apps, and actually it's perhaps only one of 4 or 5 that are not owned by Match.com, which is perhaps bar none the largest, most successful dating app company in history, headquartered famously in Dallas, Texas. They bought out Tinder a couple of years ago, and they also own pretty much every dating platform you could possibly fathom is under the Match umbrella. Now, Bumble is still, for now, independent, and they say, again, they're going to lay off 350 employees, and they note that the layoffs will help drive, quote, stronger operating leverage and align its operating model with, quote, future strategic priorities, unquote. They also note that Bumble CEO Lyndane Jones said the company is taking, quote, significant and decisive, unquote, action to accelerate its product roadmap, according to the release, which all these apps are quite depressing if you ever want to try to get on them and try them out. It's one of those things where it's very much like a video game. It's pay to play. The odds are definitely not in your favor if you're a man. And I guess it could be a funny laugh if you see what's out there and you see, oh dear God, what they put this on their profile. Those are the words they chose to describe themselves. And I suppose in that regard, it could be some moderately funny entertainment, but I don't see how a lot of the value add or the big unique thing that used to be about Bumble is the women make the first move, which is very counterintuitive and counter against nature. But it's one of those things where you would swipe, but the first message has to be from the gal, which was a unique idea that kind of put them on the map and got a lot of people's attention. But then they also have an issue. They have this feature, unquote, quote unquote, where, again, money talks. So you get more matches, you get more likes. Everything goes up when you just use a credit card, including the man could message the woman first, thereby defeating their whole value add. All you need is a credit card. So the big value add is actually defeated if you have a couple dollars, although it actually does add up quite a bit. Now, they also note that they plan to cut equivalent about 30% of their workforce lately. They claim to have more than 950 full-time employees as of December 31st, 2022, according to the SEC filing. They also note that they reported $273.6 million in revenue for the quarter, up from $241 million for the same quarter last year. But Bumble posted a net loss of $32 million or 19 cents per share compared to a year ago when the company reported a net loss of $159 million or 35 cents per share. So they're moving in the right direction, but they're still losing money, which, again, for a lot of tech companies, perhaps the most famous one in history being Amazon.com, where they lost money for years until finally reaching, I was about to say monopoly, perhaps a duopoly, or e-commerce basically monopoly, but it took them years to get to that price point or that situation where they're actually making a profit. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of evolutions they try to do to differentiate themselves from the competition. And it's not too surprising based on trends with people getting married and dating less and less in the United States. I think most people would argue Bumble is more relationship-based versus other platforms like Tinder, which is more advertised more for, I believe the youth call it a hookup culture, which is kind of sad to kind of think that the companies relying on you not to find someone to make you happy, because if they do, then they lose you as a customer forever. So the best customer is a repeat customer, many would say. So they kind of have an incentive to match you with the people that don't do well for you. But nevertheless, it'll be interesting to see what Bumble does. Let me know, have you ever had a good experience with Bumble? I've had perhaps one or two good dates on that throughout my lifetime. It's not the worst app, but again, everything is just becoming more and more like a video game where it's just pay to play, and every single feature you basically have to unlock by paying money, which again, with apps, granted, it's either advertisements or direct payments from the consumer. That's how they make money, and ad sales are down on average, so it's one of those precarious situations. What does their roadmap to profitability look like, and what is it going to realistically take to get there? As I always say, time shall tell. Now, going over to the culture part of the podcast, we have Elon on the security risk of unidentified aliens crossing the border going moderately viral. Now, this comes directly from Elon Musk's X account, or as fewer and fewer people are calling it, Twitter. Interestingly enough, let me know in the comments, do you still call it Twitter, or do you call it X? Anecdotally speaking, my friends and I usually, it's probably a 50-50 split, with more and more people calling it X Twitter, just kind of being a good default or good catch-all. It still says twitter.com as their URL. It'll be interesting to see if they ever change the actual domain. But, I mean, you no longer tweet, you actually just post, which is, you post on every platform. I thought that was kind of unique to have that for Twitter. I'm surprised you didn't do something like X or something like that. Some type of funny, interesting marketing thing, instead of just having a big button that says post, because everyone does that. But nevertheless, he says, quote, and this is actually responding to End Wokeness. Now, End Wokeness said, Venezuela has the lowest homicide rate in 20 years because of their gangs are coming here. Read that again and let that sink in. Let me see here. And he was actually responding to a Bloomberg article noting that their homicide rates as well as injury rates or attack rates have gone down. Elon responded saying, quote, the ability to discard your identification documents from any country, walk across the southern border, and claim asylum has turned America into a refuge for the world's worst criminals, unquote. And that got 12.8 million views and 151,000 likes, which is quite a few to say the least. And yeah, in terms of a national security risk, granted, I don't know how much the United States really cares about their own security, considering within my lifetime, they've never really secured the border. It's one of those cliche political topics where perhaps it's just a little pessimistic of me to say this or think this, but there seem to be a couple of key topics and hot button issues where the left and the right, Republicans and Democrats, seem to use them as political campaign tools, but you've never really had a resolution. I mean, it's been decades of people saying we need a strong southern border, any border at the south, and yet every couple decades it's kind of just the same copy-paste methodology. You'd be like, okay, we'll let them claim asylum, or we'll grandfather them in, and then we'll fix the border, and then we'll build something. And barely anything gets built on the federal level. Some states are starting to take that into their own hands, but the pessimist in me kind of thinks, well, some topics I don't think will ever be resolved because then they can't use it as a campaign funding mechanism. But let's go to the comments and see what do the folks think. Are they all going to push back on Elon and say he's completely wrong? Let's dive in and find out. Now, the first one comes from Paul Zupo. It says, quote, you would have gotten banned for saying this on old Twitter, unquote, getting 171 likes. Our favorite leftist, Luke Zaleski, well, we don't really like him, but I follow him just to gain some additional contrarian viewpoints, and life gets a little boring if you're in an echo chamber, so more viewpoints the better. He says, quote, criminals and victims, unquote. And he zoomed in on the article, and the article paragraph says, quote, Venezuela's rate of violent death drops to its lowest level in more than 2 decades following years of massive migration as both criminals and victims fled the nation's economic crisis. So did he just kind of prove Elon's point? Because again, Elon's not saying only criminals are coming on the border, although technically you could actually define them as all criminals because you're breaking the law to cross the border without doing the proper paperwork and all that kind of stuff. Some might call him mentally vacuous. Truth be told, I have from time to time for Luke Zaleski, but that contrarian statement did get 78 likes, so some people did agree with him. Now, going down a little bit further, you have Sassafras84 saying, quote, we are seeing that now. It's going to get even worse. Protect yourselves. Laken Riley should have never been taken. And there's a picture of Laken Riley and says, quote, the blood of Laken Riley is on the hands of Joe Biden and Alexandro Mayorkas, unquote, getting 2.1 thousand likes. Peace most simply says this clown is destroying America, unquote, and is a picture of Biden with a cool or funny little clown rainbow afro, what do you call that thing? Like an afro wig. And then he also is using crayons instead of a pen at the table. He has the Fisher-Price, this might age me quite a bit, the old wooden Fisher-Price toy where it's a phone, and it's Capri Sun. And there's a big stack of papers that says Trump's fault. Wow, completely unrealistic, because on this table is also a pack of Newports, and I don't think Biden smokes, does he? But nevertheless, that meme did get 486 likes. Libercrat Media TM says, quote, good riddle, and is a picture of the vintage, the original Riddler from back in the day. And the text says, quote, riddle me this. How do immigrants strengthen our country but not their own? Unquote, gave 1.2 thousand likes. Let's see here. Libercat Media TM also has the good Scooby-Doo meme where you have Fred about to unmask the ghost or the ghoul in the cartoon, but it's photoshopped, so it's Freddy saying, let's see who's really behind destroying our country. And he lifts up the mask and has Joe Biden, and he lifts it up and it's Barack Obama. That got 452 likes, which I don't know how many people believe that Biden has not suffered from cognitive decline, which begs the question, who is really calling the shots in his administration, or who's really in charge? Because again, we've seen interviews, and I don't think it's a bombastic thing to say or outrageous thing to say that he has suffered decline. Just watch his old interviews compared to now. I think a lot of people are starting to ask that question. Let's see here. Steve Stevenson says, quote, your huddled masses are awfully male and violent these days. And there's a picture of a raft with illegal immigrants saying, quote, you're not being intolerant, you're not being inclusive, you're not being open-minded, you're being conquered, unquote. They got 139 likes. A lot of clips of, let's see here. Brian Krasenstein says, quote, yes, now why doesn't Congress do something about it? President Biden tried to last year, but making it illegal to cross the border without prior asylum claims in Mexico. But the United States judicial system said that his directives were illegal. We need new laws in order to give the president the tools he needs, unquote. Now that got 605 likes. Let's see here. But the first response is from Terrell, responding to him saying idiot. That got 110 likes. Which, again, will the people in D.C. really ever solve? How many problems have they really solved in our lifetime? I mean, I'm not saying it's zero. I'm just saying conceivably you could fix it. You could list them on a cocktail napkin. That's a joke because cocktail napkins are notoriously small. Nevertheless, other comments. You have Ian Miles Chung saying, quote, it's troubling that anyone on the run from the law in another country can easily hop across the border, then discard the documents to go live in some town or city while getting free subsidies from the government, unquote, getting 659 likes. Red Wave Press says, quote, Venezuela has seen crime gone down, while America has seen crime go up. More illegal immigrants from Venezuela means more criminals from Venezuela. It's that simple. Follow if you agree, unquote, getting 176 likes. You have Right Angle News Network, which A+ for marketing. The logo is in fact of the geographic right angle. And it says, quote, America is paying the price for people who want to virtue signal to the world about what good and amazing people they are because they want to welcome these illegal invaders into our country. Follow me if you agree. I'm quoting 191 likes. So again, we do have, let's see here, a couple contrarian statements, but as I scroll through more and more, it seems overwhelming support for Elon saying, this is a huge security risk because I don't want to say obviously it is, but yeah, it obviously is. If you don't know their identification, they're crossing the border, they could literally be anyone. And considering the incentive mechanism structure in the United States, this situation is just going to continue as is. It's not going to stop anytime soon. So let me know in the comments, are you concerned at all about this? I know it's perhaps one of the most viral political and cultural topics of our lifetime, and shoot, even to this day, while it has exponentially increased in terms of the number of people crossing in the past couple of years, that's also why I think the topic is being brought up more and more. But Do you think it's going to get solved anytime soon? I can't but think. If I were to look at the Magic 8 Ball, the odds would probably say, odds are not so good. Now going over to the political part podcast, you have Vivek's 10 consistent truths going viral. Again, true to the point that marketing consistency is key. Now this comes from Vivek's personal X Twitter profile, and he said this throughout his campaign for the Republican nominee to become president, and there's a lot of speculation he's keeping this up because I don't know if he's going to become VP or what type of position he's going to have in government, but he is increasing the amount of political rhetoric he puts out, even though he is no longer technically running for the Republican nominee for presidential office. So that's why if I were a gambling man, well, I suppose I am since I gamble on myself all the time with the business, but nevertheless, if I were a traditional Las Vegas gambling man, I'd probably say the odds are he's looking for some type of position in government, and that's why he's consistently putting these statements out. Now, he says on his X Twitter profile, again, this is from Vivek, he says, quote, truth, 1, God is real. 2, there are 2 genders. 3, humans flourishing requires fossil fuels. 4, reverse racism is racism. 5, an open border is no border. 6, parents determine the education of their children. 7, the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind. 8, capitalism lifts people up from poverty. 9, there are 3 branches of U.S. government, not 4. 10, the U.S. Constitution is the strongest guarantor of freedoms in history, unquote. Which, as youth might say, he's quite on point. And that went viral, even though he's not running. Still got 1.2 million views and 44,000 likes in the first 24 hours of it being posted. That is astronomically successful on social media. Now, not to brag, but I did get 18 likes on one of my videos last week and 2 or 3 comments. Though, for me, it's all about quality. Those are the best OGs who tune into the show, so I'm especially appreciative to those who take the 1/1000th of a second to like this video right here, right now. Now, again, the only detriment to that, and actually it's a perfect statement, but the only downside of the marketing is how do you fit those on a t-shirt or a mug? That makes it a little bit more difficult. Now, I think these truths or these statements align with many Americans and many constitutional supporters, or constitutionalists, or people who believe in the founding fathers. I think that resonates with a lot of people. That's why it's such a popular message and so usually positive, well received. I wonder how he can make that more concise or put it more into a singular message. I mean, one of the best marketing messages, bar none, would be Barack Obama's hope and change. Even if I didn't agree with his political policies, I mean, that marketing worked. I mean, it was one of the best marketing campaigns I've seen in political history. It resonated with, quite literally, millions upon millions upon millions of Americans. And same thing with Trump. He had a great campaign with Make America Great Again, which is why I'm so disappointed he hasn't done the same thing, but with an orange hat. Because again, you could double the hat sales, and so many people have a disdain for the traditional Republican Party, because again, how much have they really done to really stand for Republican values throughout my lifetime? Can't help but see and notice they haven't gotten suppressors off the NFA list. They haven't decreased the taxes or made it easier to start a business in many ways. That's why I think a lot of people identify Trump more libertarian, more in the middle. That's why, again, get rid of the red, do an orange hat. And here again, we already had the shtick with Trump being orange. I mean, the memes and the sales would make themselves. Maybe I'm just crazy, but do you think that'd be a good idea? I sometimes I think it's more effective to lean into the meme, and Trump has on a couple of times, and it's been wildly viral and popular. But back to Vivek, going back to the comments, I can't help but think they'll probably be overwhelmingly supported. Now, the first one comes from Luke Zaleski, our favorite leftist. Well, we don't really like him, but I don't really like echo chambers, so I want to try to get as many different political views as possible, and he is much more politically speaking on the left. Now, he says, quote, the truth is, Vivek is a hedge funder who wants you to believe he's interested in public service so he can eliminate government from his public life and mount a private sector takeover of the country, but the government exists to protect against the greedy, think seatbelts and cigarettes, unquote. Now, granted, some of that might be mentally vacuous, but important to note that 348 people did agree with that statement and like it. And truth be told, 28 people responded to Luke specifically. And one of the first responses actually does agree with him. DJ Darwin says, quote, he wants his pharma grifting to continue unimpeded, getting 8 likes. Now, BC did reply saying give it up, but they only got 2 likes. And yeah, there are a couple of people who are, again, in terms of the comments specifically towards Luke, do agree with his political statement there. Now, he says, wants to interested in a public service to eliminate government for his life. you know what? That wouldn't be too bad to have less government in our day-to-day lives, although that's just me. Well, actually, no, it's millions of Americans who believe in that. But there's a modicum of, really, there's a little bit of truth in that. And he says, think seatbelts protect the greedy. Government exists to protect the greedy. Think seatbelts and cigarettes. How does that, maybe I'm not reading this properly. Is he insinuating that the government is protecting cigarettes? Because the government turns so much against cigarettes, they're not even allowed to advertise on the traditional networks. That's the reason you haven't seen a cigarette in a TV commercial in decades, is because the U.S. government, so, in my opinion, overreacted to their advertising and marketing campaigns and actually made it illegal to advertise and using that particular media methodology. And there are a lot of the old sin stocks, or the old sin industries, which are pejoratively called sin because for some people they believe it's a sin. We have alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. I call them the fun three things, even though should be told I don't partake in many of them. But nevertheless, it is one of those things where, yeah, the U.S. government actually really hammered down on the cigarette companies. It says, think seatbelts. I mean, that was invented by an engineer designer over at Volvo who open sourced it or allowed any company to use it. And it was technically not a law for, I believe it was 15 or 18 years in the automotive community. The government, interestingly enough, remember the seatbelts, and this, again, might age me. You had the seatbelts where they actually would whirl up the window. So right now, in every modern vehicle, the seatbelts are stationary, so the top part of the seatbelt is just in the wall. But it used to actually slide up and down, and the government at the time said you could either have that or an airbag, take your choice. And eventually it did become a mandate, I want to say in 1990, is it two or three? Because I remember in 1994, most of the cars had them by then. I forget the actual year, but for a while it was voluntary. Then the government did, of course, they did what government does and said, you're forced to have this in your vehicle. Now, back to other comments. Let's see here. Eric Radel says, quote, what will it take for you two to get together, break some stuff, and he tagged Robert Kennedy Jr., and there's a meme that says, let's abolish the Federal Reserve, IRS, DHS, CIA, FBI, NSA, ATF, DEA, FDA, and slash the Pentagon's budget and leave NATO and the UN, unquote. They got 289 likes, which, again, Robert Kennedy Jr., he has some interesting ideas, but he's also traditionally anti-gun, and I don't see them coming together anytime soon. There's a lot of rumors of maybe RFK Jr. is going to run as an independent because Democrats are going to lock him out, obviously, just like they did to Bernie Sanders when the people said they wanted Bernie Sanders in 2015 for the 2016 election, but the DNC said, yeah, no, we're not going to listen to the people. We're going to just put in Clinton because we think the odds of her winning are greater than Bernie. Now, let's see here. Scrolling down a little bit more. America First simply said, truth, Vivek for VP. And here's a little graphic that says, Vivek Trump, make America great again in 2024. They got 727 likes, which is quite a few to say the least. Mandy says, quote, 11, Vivek would make an incredible VP in Trump's presidency, unquote. They got 537 likes, which would be funny if Vivek actually said that, because, again, this is Vivek's top 10 statements. It would be funny if he said 11, I would make a great VP, or something like that, because, again, he's not officially running for the Republican nominee for the president position. Again, I don't think he'd ever do that. But First Words says, quote, 11, Google Gemini is a product of leftist ideology, and when it comes to culture and social issues, it is not artificial intelligence, but pure propaganda, unquote. They got 155 likes, which, given the massive bias that is in Google AIs, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that statement. I think, or perhaps few people would disagree with that statement. Let's see here. America 357 says, and TDS is real, unquote, and it's the picture of the famous girl with very short hair and glasses and the beanie breaking down and crying after Trump won office because her person didn't win an election. She broke down and cried, screaming no, which is quite hilarious and entertaining to show the mental ineptitudes of her, the childlike symptoms she shows. Because, again, you shouldn't cry because a politician wins or loses. I don't care who you vote for. And I wouldn't cry until they start taking your rights away, which many would argue they have. That is probably a graver concern or greater concern than who's sitting in a particular seat at the moment. Granted, there are those implications. Now, scrolling down, you have Scott Lee says, quote, pineapple doesn't belong on pizza, unquote, getting 57 likes, which, yeah, I was going to say, have I ever tried that in my life, or did I find it so viscerally weird I never did? I might have taken a bite once in my lifetime. Have you ever had a pineapple on a pizza? I know it's a thing, don't get me wrong, but what's the take rate? Like, how many times does that order actually go through to Papa John's or Domino's? I can't but think 99% of their orders are either pepperoni, sausage, cheese. That's probably the majority of their sales. They might, I don't even think it'd be 2% of their sales. Let me know. When was the last time you actually ate a pineapple pizza? Or more accurately, when was the time you willingly ordered? Like, that was your choice. I think I met one person in my lifetime who actually had that. And they were a weird person. Interesting person, but still. Let's see. Meme on libs says, quote, 11. If it upsets a liberal, it's probably right. Unquote, getting 43 likes. Scrolling down more. Pericles says, quote, Vivek, that's not how acronyms work. Those 10 points do not spell out truth. Unquote, getting 41 likes, which, that would have been a good marketing idea too. Have, again, the first letter, then when you look at it, I'll spell something out. That kind of be a good idea. You'd have to move a couple things around, but I kind of like that. Peacemo says, quote, truth, nothing but truth. Unquote, getting 39 likes. Ooh, another contrarian statement, perhaps, or maybe neutral, depending on how you take this. Had to scroll down a little bit. We had Frederick Morianis said, quote, which God are you talking about? Unquote, 19 likes, which I think was a small point of controversy. Some people were not perhaps comfortable that Vivek is Hindu, but traditionally most U.S. presidents have been Catholic or Christian, or I think overwhelmingly those are the most popular political conscriptions and rather religious beliefs that have been held by political officials in the presidential suite. So I know that was a point of concern for some people, but I don't personally think that was a major contributing factor for why Vivek didn't succeed ultimately in getting the Republican nominee. I think it was because he had so many views that are so similar to Trump. The people who want, again, one of the most popular comments you see on all of Vivek's communications is, prior to him dropping out, was, we think you're great, we love your ideas, you'd be great in 2028. That was one of those popular things we saw time and time again. So again, overwhelming positive feedback in the comments. It'll be fascinating to see where he lands at the end of the day. But he's still extremely active, politically speaking. Obviously on social media. And again, it'll be interesting. Let me know in the comments. Do you think he would make an exceptional VP, or do you think Trump needs someone kind of like last time, someone to perhaps balance him out, where he had Mike Pence, who is much less energetic, and maybe someone who isn't so similar? But let me know. As usual, I'll be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, you have Nikki Haley Trump Debt tweet mostly backfires completely. Now this, as she, for reasons, still runs for the Republican nominee, when Trump is again ahead by leaps and bounds, to say the least. If we go to the funneled, and again, we're going to have some caucuses report on later this week and some other results, but if we go to the poll aggregator at projects.538.com, that poll aggregator has Trump, where is he at? Trump is at 76.9%, and Nikki Haley is down at 15.5%. So, to say he's ahead by leaps and bounds is perhaps almost an underestimate of the situation, or under-analysis of the situation. He's so far ahead, he can't see here in the rear view mirror. Perhaps it's a more accurate metaphor or something to that effect. There's no conceivable way she can make up that ground, even though it's actually almost impressive Trump has this much of a lead, considering she has a lot more funding in terms of, there are a lot of the traditional big political donors who actually donate to her and not Trump. Most famously, he had one of the most powerful, influential CEOs in the world. We have Mr. Jamie Dimon. He's the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase. He actually implored people to donate to her, kind of, as the youth might say, to hedge your bets, because she has so many policies that are very similar to Biden and Democrats. So you kind of, as the youth might say, or some might say, you win either way. And truth be told, a lot of businesses do this as well. They'll donate to both Republicans and Democrats. So no matter who wins, they still have some power, influence, and all that kind of good stuff. Now, going to her specific tweet from her ex-Twitter profile. Oh, the touchscreen doesn't implode on me. She says, quote, Donald Trump put our nation $6 trillion in debt in just 4 years. There's no indication that he'll stop spending spree if he's back in the White House. Our kids are the ones who have to deal with that mess, unquote. And while it's moderately interesting, for her, moderately viral. Again, nothing has topped her Soviet statement, and that got like 8 point something million. But this is a little bit better than her average. Now this got 286,000 views and only 4.5 thousand likes. So very few people like her, at least on social media. I actually saw a picture, I don't think it was Photoshopped, where it was a picture of her at a rally, and there were people around her, and they weren't throwing tomatoes or being, yelling insults at her. They were Nikki Haley fans. So they do exist, apparently. In full transparency, I've never met one, but, which begs the question, have you? I've never seen a Nikki Haley flag or t-shirt, or, again, marketing is key. I haven't seen any swag or indicators that people around me are supportive of her. Maybe one or two of my Democrat friends like her because, again, she has very similar policies, but I don't know a lot of people who consider themselves libertarian or the middle or Republican who are in support of her. That being said, again, we just looked at statistics. She's getting about 17% or so in the poll aggregator. And yeah, let's go in the comments and see what are people saying. Now, one of the first comments comes from Paul Zazupa. He says, quote, Nikki Haley is just lying like a corporate establishment candidate she is. Trump cut taxes for all Americans. Most of the debt Haley is claiming came after COVID lockdowns in the form of relief payments. Haley wants to spend countless trillions on war. The choice is clear. Unquote, getting 959 likes despite my speaking ineptitudes. Now, granted, I'm not a scientist, but I do have a little bit of theory. If you click the like button, it could really assist in my speaking ineptitudes, and especially the subscribe button. When I first started the show, believe it or not, I actually stuttered worse and spoke even faster than here and now, which I know seems inconceivable, but ever since then, got more and more subscribers, more and more likes, more and more comments, and speaking has improved. You might argue it's just a modicum of improvement, barely at all. However, it is a little bit of an improvement. So if you click that button, subscribe, I would especially appreciate it, and very well may assist in my speaking ineptitudes and decreasing them. But as I always say, time shall tell. Going back to other comments, you have Faraz Ali Bolksh saying, quote, what about them? And it says, there are 14 million kids living in poverty in America, yet these people and the left fight for illegal immigrants. And it's a picture of Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, as well as Kamala Harris. They got 123 likes. The Bayou Boy says, quote, go home. And it's a picture of Nikki Haley holding a trophy in a cornfield. And it says, Nikki Haley celebrates her 5th straight loss, participation trophy, getting 479 likes. Patriot Dad says, quote, the only person creating a mess right now is Nikki Haley. She knows there's no chance to ever be the nominee. Her only goal is to create division in the voter base. The losing streak will continue state after state, destroying all chances of running in the future. Unquote, getting 217 likes. Scrolling down more and more. You have Joseph Pino saying, quote, Nikki Haley would give $8 trillion to Ukraine, unquote, getting 629 likes. Oh, Jesus. That's scary. Joseph Gallon says, quote, you're going to lose again, Hillary. Oops. And it's a picture of Hillary Clinton photoshopped with Nikki Haley's face, where the faces are merged together, which is, geez Louise, thankfully you can't see this particular picture. I'm not displaying it at the moment, but I want to say you'd lose sleep because it's some type of creature you'd see under your bed or imagine under your bed as a child as a monster. But I did get 448 likes, and for the record, I do greatly enjoy life and plan to live it to its fullest for many, many, many years, and would never insult the Clintons, who are extremely, very moral, intelligent people who would never hurt a fly. Just want to say that for the record. I love life. Knock on wood. Now, going down more and more, you have Patriot 911 saying, quote, have fun losing again in Michigan today, getting 217 likes. The U.S. Ministry of Truth saying, quote, who do you work for? Getting 195 likes. Let's see here. There's got to be some contrarians or someone who believes in her. Brian Kennedy says, quote, Nikki works for the DNC Uniparty now, getting 65 likes. Williams says, quote, Trump filled our depleted oil reserves as a national security risk, built 500 miles of border wall, funded black colleges, and spent all that for America, not foreign interests like you, Nikki, in South Carolina, bringing CCP companies to compete with American-owned companies, unquote, getting 59 likes. Tony Lanianti says, quote, did you register as a Democrat yet? Unquote, getting 21 likes. It's got to be one positive statement. Pamela Sohn said, quote, so you proved to Trump until you found you can get richer the other way, unquote, getting 49 likes. Toikayo says, quote, you would spend $8 trillion to Israel if you got elected, unquote, getting 42 likes. And Tony says, quote, typical misrepresenting the truth. Rhino, COVID affected the deficit and was needed, unquote, getting 27 likes. Oh, geez Louise. Someone has Nikki Haley looking like the Wizard. No, not the Wizard of Oz. The witch. The witch from the Wizard of Oz getting 50 likes. They didn't have to do much Photoshop for that, but they did a little. There's got to be someone who likes her. Ultra Nuclear Mega says, quote, tax revenue went up, getting 3 likes. Let's see here. Patriot Plus says, quote, your plan is to put us $8 trillion in debt. Not a great bargain, quote, getting 5 likes. There's got to be someone who likes her. Let's see here. M.L. Hayden says, quote, what entitlement program would you cut to balance the budget, unquote, getting 7 likes, which perhaps that's kind of a neutral comment. It's not really praising her, but asking her a question. Interestingly enough, they never really ask that, do they? Like, okay, you're going to cut these. Tell us the top 3 things we're going to cut day 1 to decrease the deficit and decrease government spending. Which, again, I forget which libertarian candidate or representative in D.C. proposed this, but I really like the idea of someone had, and again, it's not my idea, it's someone else, and they said every time the government wants to pass any bill that costs money, they have to have a footnote and a mechanism to actually fund it. And even better, have people, in some cases, vote on it. So say, hey, we're going to do this, but it's going to cost you an extra, 2 or 3% of your income tax, or something to that effect. And yet, no, they just keep passing them with no idea of, we'll just swipe the credit card, which has not worked with both Republicans and Democrats leading the country. Scrolling down more and more. There's got to be, just statistically speaking, there has to be at least one. I guess we'll count that as a neutral. We're scrolling down into the comments here, folks. Thomas Merlin says, stop telling the same things every day. Change your words. And quote, getting 6 likes. Let's see. Shay says, quote, he also didn't take a paycheck or enter any wars. I can't see you giving up either. Unquote, getting 4 likes. Which, I think a lot of Americans forget that Trump actually gave up his salary for when he was a president. He actually lost money. Well, especially now with the lawsuits that are, I think many would argue, are politically motivated, since many of the things he did are identical to other politicians, yet he's the only one where the charges are actually being brought forth. Let's see here. We're getting to the bottom of the comments, folks. I mean, these are getting between 0 and 1 likes, and even these are not positive. It's got to be at least 1. Let's see. Sheepdog Society says, yeah, that's why he's beating you in Michigan, getting 2 likes. A lot of people just saying, just go away, you're an ambassador, what about your time in the UN? A lot of people saying, it's over, drop out, where's the debt now? There's got to be... Jack Lombardi says, Democrats controlled the House, getting 3 likes. Let's see here. A lot of people literally saying, blah, 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 stop. Chris PD said, my taxes doubled under Biden. Surrender Dorothy. LOL, your store here, go away. Drop out Haley. I was going to say, how many comments are there total? Because we might be here for a while. Let's see here. Scroll up to the very top, or back up. Oh, come on, technology, work for me, not against me. There's so many comments. There's 3,600 comments. Let's see here. And we're scrolling deep, folks. All right, we'll take one more scroll. A lot of people saying, I hate liars, I hate scum. A lot of people calling her a loser. This very well may be a fascinating political phenomenon, a mathematical phenomenon as well. We call it the Chris Christie effect, which, truth be told, has only happened twice on the show, where we found there are 2 times where Chris Christie actually tweeted something, and he had 0 positive responses. And allegedly, Chris Christie has, family members, friends, allegedly a campaign staff when he was running, and yet 2 separate times, 0 positive comments appeared under the replies for his original statement. This may be one of those times. Again, there's 3,600. We can't go through all of them, but Crimea River, you're pathetic. Your wars are running up too. You lost again. Statistically speaking, there has to be at least 1. A lot of people simply saying BS propaganda, go home, drop out. A lot of those scary pictures of her face with Hillary amalgamation to 1. Let's see. Folks, we're at the very bottom. And granted, I'm scrolling through pretty quick. And I didn't see a single positive one. There was that one that we could say is probably a little bit more neutral, where it's just posing the question, how do how are you funding these? And yet, I don't want to call it prematurely, but scrolling back up, I'm seeing still just mostly negative comments. I'm not seeing me miss anything. A lot of people calling her a neocon, a rhino, which again is a pejorative word as Republican in name only, where they run as Republican, but all their policies and their voting patterns are in fact Democratic policies, and based on those beliefs and that political ideology. There has to be, let's see here. Let's see. I think a lot of people saying we think she took a bribe. A lot of people calling her by her old last name, Nimrata, before she got married. Some people are calling out her infidelity, where she cheated on her husband at the time. A lot of people saying only Democrats are supporting you. Let's see. A lot of people saying surrender Dorothy. So, again, we did a script. I mean, we read the top ones, and truth be told, I think, yeah, we're going to have to give her the Chris Christie Award. So we have a very fascinating, rare instance where you have the Chris Christie anomaly, in which, again, not a single positive comment was to be found. And granted, I'll do a little asterisk. I didn't read every single one of the 3,000 plus comments, but we went all the way to the bottom and scrolled all the way to the top. And the best we could say is we found one neutral comment. So in that case, we'll round it. We'll say there's 0 positive comments for Nikki Haley, which again is a fascinating, improbable thing to happen. Though I would say perhaps given her background and what she's running on, probably the odds are probably more than not they would be mostly negative. But I didn't think it'd be 0. So that's pretty astonishing. Not too surprising. But let me know in the comments. Not only do you know anyone who supports Nikki Haley, but have you ever seen? Again, this is just X-Twitter. Maybe we'll check out the Facebook sometime. We'll look at those comments. But yeah, not a single positive comment for that particular statement from Nikki Haley. I don't see her able to win anytime soon. The only possibility is if Trump is legally barred from running, then she'd be the default, which, geez Louise, I can't imagine many Republicans being happy with that option. But let me know in the comments. It'll be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Toyota recalling 381,000 Tacoma pickup trucks. Now, they note that they plan to notify customers being impacted by the recall, and it is both the 2023 and 2024 Tacoma trucks, and the recall is going to be officially released over in April, or just tune into this show. Since there's so many business blunders in the automotive community, we usually cover them about a month before the letters actually go out to the owners of the vehicles. Now, specifically, Toyota announced it's going to recall the Tacoma pickup truck to address an issue with parts falling off the rear axle that can impact the vehicle's performance and raise the risk of a crash. How did that get by them? Now, they also noted specifically for trucks sold into the U.S., indicated customers recalled will be noted by mail in April. When asked for comment, Toyota said, quote, welding debris left at the end of the rear axle during assembly during manufacturing could cause certain retaining nuts to loosen over time and eventually fall off, potentially causing a part to separate from the axle, unquote. They also note that, quote, if the separation occurs, this could affect the vehicle's ability to and brake performance, stability and brake performance, increasing the risk of a crash, unquote, which it's kind of funny that they had to spell it out. Like, I mean, again, if you know anything about vehicles or just have a modicum of automotive intelligence, the importance of the axle holding it all together and the wheels. It's kind of obvious, yes, this could be detrimental, but they do have to kind of spell it out for, everyone. Now, I still can't. Now, they also note, quote, for all involved vehicles, Toyota dealers will inspect the rear axle assembly and retighten the axle retaining nuts at no cost to the customer. If the axle components are damaged as a result of the condition, they will be repaired or replaced if necessary based on the inspection of criteria. Which, again, that's still not great news to the consumer because, again, Toyota is known for one thing. Bulletproof reliability is the thing they have going for them. That's why you look at all these articles about the top cars hit over 1 million miles, and it's not 100% Toyotas, but more often than not, it's a Toyota, and then usually subsequently following by Hondas. I mean, there's a reason they're top rated in reliability more often than not. And it's one of those issues where trucks are especially criticized. It's one of the huge fascinating things with trucks is it's a big culture thing. It's not always, actually I would argue it's actually mostly about culture versus in IT we call, features of products speeds and feeds, how fast the product can work, how fast the processor can do magical things. And with trucks it's more around the culture. My great granddad had one, my dad had one. That's a big reason why people buy a certain truck manufacturer, make, model. And Toyota's traditionally struggled in the truck category compared to the big three traditionally, Ford, General Motors, as well as Chrysler, having, the Chevy Silverado, you have the Ford F-150, then you have the Dodge Ram being kind of the big three that take up a majority of the truck market in the United States, which is actually pretty impressive despite all the recalls they have as well. But a truck is supposed to be heavy duty. Fords are supposed to be built tough. They had a whole marketing campaign for quite some time. Interestingly enough, I haven't seen that vernacular being used lately. But I can't imagine Toyota having this big an issue, which one of their flagship vehicles. And it'll be interesting to see how many people are annoyed to hell by this. Because, again, this is also another instance where you have to physically go to the dealership, doing how long this inspection takes. Again, it's always free to the consumer. Now, it's not good for the shareholders in Toyota because they have to pay the dealerships to do this service. But it's also an instance where it's taking up your time, your resources, and in some cases, you have to, heaven forbid, you actually have to leave the truck there overnight. Then you have to worry about even maybe renting a vehicle if the automotive dealership doesn't have a loaner you can use, or you have to deal with paying for an Uber or a Lyft or calling in a favor from a friend. So obviously, it's extremely inconvenient. It chisels away at the brand identity of being a extremely reliable vehicle. So especially because it is a Toyota and that's their whole image of the company, that certainly is the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback. So let me know how I can make the show better and better over time. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.